Welcome to Ladders, where we break down the guys rising up the fantasy football ranks and talk about who you should drop them for. I'm FTW's Christian DeAndre. He is a Rhode Island scumbag. Mike, Yaj, Boyaj, and Yaj, how you feeling now that the Patriots 4-2, careening toward the top of the AFC East?
I'm really confident in what Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels are putting together, specifically with Drake May, because I mean he looks amazing right now. I know we say this every week, but man, happy to be a Patriots fan right now.
Leads the league in EPA. We'll get to him because we're going to be talking about MVP stuff later. But first, let's talk about the rising stars. We're going to talk with a guy about owned on their level. Then we're going to go up a notch. Then we're going to go up a notch and help you figure out whether or not you should drop your long-established bench guys to pick up maybe a flash in the pan, starting with Los Angeles Chargers running back Kimani Vidal. Vidal, hot pickup this week with Omarion Hampton out. 124 yards on 18 carries, 4 targets, 3 catches, a touchdown. Big performance. Outsnapped Hassan Haskins 42-20. Looks like the guy in Los Angeles right now. So, Yaj, would you rather have Kimani Vidal or Jaguars RB2, Bashuel Tutin?
Well, it's going to come down to who's being used right now, and that's not Tutin. So, I mean, I could have actually made this move myself last week. I chose not to, not really understanding what the roles were going to be in the Chargers backfield, but clearly it's Vidal. And at this rate, it looks like he's going to be used frequently, and I would be dumping Tutin at this point for him if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, as a Hampton owner and a guy who picked up Amari DeMarcado over Vidal, over Michael Wilson, I have regrets. I would not be picking up Tutin right now. He's getting some run out of the backfield as a receiver, 7 routes last week, but the carries aren't there. And the vision is not really there as well. I don't know if you saw the highlight clip this week, Yash. Tutin, all he's got to do is move slightly to his left for a big gain. Instead, he just runs right into his own blocker, and the guy and the defender he's paired up with trying to bowl everyone over. Love the effort. He's fast as hell. Dude loves contact, but that's not going to get you tons of fantasy points right now. Next man up, 57% owned, Houston Texans running back. Maybe the RB1, maybe RB1B, Woody Marks. Do you want Kimani Vidal on your roster, or do you want Woody Marks?
All right, here's a tale of 2 running backs with relatively similar roles. The thing we have to keep in mind is how long Vidal is going to have this role. Marks is locked in for the year, it looks like, as the pass catching back. Nick Chubb is not going anywhere, so apparently Nick Chubb is still going to be that goal line back. So as of now, if you're going to make the choice between the two, you could go with Vidal, just because that injury to Hampton doesn't look like it's going to be healing up anytime soon. So give or take 5 weeks worth of production, at least 5-6 weeks. I'm going to go with Vidal here.
Yeah, I think I would actually go in the opposite direction on that one, even though Marks is going to be a frustrating case, right? He only has 4 red zone carries so far. Anything near the goal line looks like it's going to go to Nick Chubb, but the receiving roll out of the backfield for Texans team that's getting crushed up front, there's going to be a lot of checkdowns waiting for him. CJ Stroud needs to get the ball out of his hands and get it to someone. Woody Marks can be that guy. We know Nick Chubb has never really quite been that kind of receiving back. And Kimani Vidal, let's be honest, Yash, he doesn't get to face the Miami Dolphins every week. Those numbers are going to come back down. This is a guy who could barely get off the practice squad before this week for a reason. He's a guy who was ceding snaps to Najee Harris, who was a plotter. I don't know, despite the big week 6 output, that he's going to be able to get back to those heights ever again. I think Marks is maybe the safer bet there. Next man up, a man you might have stashed on injured reserve, 77% owned, Minnesota Vikings, Aaron Jones. Yash, do you want the stability of old man Aaron Jones coming off the injured list probably soon? Or do you want the flash in the pan, high ceiling of a Kimani Vidal?
I'm a risk taker. I'm going to roll with Vidal again. Simply put, Jordan Mason is not going anywhere as well. And he's been getting the majority of the scoring chances in that Minnesota offense. So I'll take Vidal just because, once again, we don't know exactly when Hampton's returning. So for now, especially if they don't go out and make a trade, we have the RB1 for the Bolts locked and loaded in my lineup, and I'm going to stick with him rather than going with old man Jones.
I'm going to go counter you again. And you got a quarterback with A lot to prove out there, and there's going to be a lot of checkdowns. Aaron Jones is running a ton of routes before he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He's a savvy guy, and also lately, Jordan Mason hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. Yes, he's got those yards per carry over expected going right now, but been fairly underwhelming. You do think that Aaron Jones is going to get more of a look in that offense, especially if he can bring value out of the backfield as a receiver for J.J. McCarthy, should he ever return, or Carson Wentz. I think I want the more established production and the higher floor compared to the will he, won't he of Kimani Vidal.
Okay.
Next man up, a man near and dear to our hearts, Kayshon Boutte. We talked about him in week 1. He's back after another huge performance for Drake May. So let's talk about whether or not you should add Kayshon Boutte and who you should drop him for. Now, Boutte coming off a huge day against the New Orleans Saints, granted, consider the competition, not one of the better defenses out there. And he had a very Kayshon Boutte day, very little separation, huge box outs, 2 touchdowns, almost 100 yards, 5 catches on 5 targets. So, Yash, do you want Kayshon Boutte, only 8% owned in Yahoo right now, or do you want the rookie for the Houston Texans, Jaden Higgins, who's 13% owned?
All right. In this case, I think I'm going to hold on to Higgins. I do want to see what happens coming out of the bye. We all know that rookie bump that a lot of these young offensive players get coming out of their buys, and not too many of them are 6'4", that run a 4.4 40 with soft hands, and the guy can run a good route. Now, granted, he's not getting a lot of separation, but who knows? Maybe he develops into one of those guys they're using near the goal line. So in this case, I know, seen enough football to know what Kayshon Boutte is. Yes, he's going to have those boom weeks, but like we said, we talked about him in week 1. It's been 5 weeks since he did anything. So in this case, I'll take the upside of Higgins for now.
Yeah, Boutte, like you mentioned, this is his first game with more than 3 targets since week 1. So he's going to come and go in that offense, but he's become such a reliable target for Drake May that I do think his role is going to expand. 2.21 yards per route run. That's a top 20 mark. Even though his yards of separation, 2.5, 117th among qualified wideouts. This is not a guy who's getting open, but he's able to create his own space, make those contested catches. He's not going to give you any yards after catch. Yash, this is my favorite thing. 20 yards after catch, 18 catches this season. This man is not going anywhere when he has the ball, and it's awesome. I love him. Higgins, career high, 16 routes in week 5. They're trying to involve him more in that offense, but that was also a route. I think he's just a little bit too unreliable right now. I want the stable floor of Kayshon Boutte, even though the upside of Jaden Higgins is pretty high. Next man up, a guy I love as a player, but not in the fantasy realm, New York Giants wide receiver Darius Slayton. Now, Darius Slayton missed week 6. He's dealing with a hamstring injury, but he is, in theory, the de facto wide receiver 1 in New York with Malik Neighbors out. So, Yaj, do you want Kayshon Boutte, or do you want the 25% owned Darius Slayton in your lineup going forward?
I'm going to go with Boutte here, although Slayton might be the more intelligent play. He just seems to always have something wrong. Either he's hurt or he's just not being used properly. Are they going to use him in the slot? They're going to try to bump him outside. He's another guy who he doesn't ever seem to come through in fantasy. He's talked up all the time. It seems like every year there's at least 2 or 3 instances where it's going to be a Slayton week, and the week happens when no one's expecting it. He's incredibly unpredictable, much like Kayshon Boutte. But you do make a good point that Boutte seems to be more involved and is going to stay more involved. So I'll take one of Drake May's favorite targets over Jackson Dart at this point. So I'll actually take Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, right now Slayton hasn't really put himself inside Jackson Dart's circle of trust the way Wan'Dale Robinson has. Only 10 targets with 2 games with Dart at quarterback. And right now he's dealing with a soft tissue injury. For a guy whose route tree is as diverse as Darius Slayton, because the Giants don't really know where to put him. His role has changed from deep threat to short threat to, he does a little bit of everything. If he can't get that get-off speed back in line, and that's the problem with a hamstring injury. It's always going to be there nagging almost for the rest of the season. That's going to really put a damper on the rest of the year for him. So, no, I don't think he is going to be the wide receiver one anymore. I think it's going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. If you can go out and trade for him, go get him, because I think he's going to be the Huckleberry for Jackson Dart, along with, of course, Cam Scatterbo, the man who runs like CTE is chasing him at all times. Man up. Our PPR king, Josh Downs, Indianapolis Colts. A slow start, but he's starting to get those targets. He's starting to rise up Daniel Jones's wish list. So, Yaj, do you want Kayshon Boutte, 8% owned, or would you prefer Josh Downs, who's right around 47% owned in Yahoo leagues?
All right, this is more of a coin flip for me because at this point, I believe that Downs is just as reliable as Kayshon Boutte is in these two offenses. We could see the Colts next week, and Daniel Jones is peppering Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce again. So he's had 2 weeks. Okay, well, he was also a ghost for what seemed like the first 4. I'm going to go with the upside of Boutte here. I know it could be a bad choice, but like I said, I'll stick with what Drake May, who he likes to throw to, rather than Daniel Jones.
I think this comes down to if you're in a PPR league, a half PPR league, or no PPR. A half PPR, no PPR. Downs is a lot tougher sell. This is a guy who's going to get a lot of targets near the line of scrimmage out of the slot, and he's probably going to get you, let's say, 6 catches on 9 targets and 45 yards, something like that.
Right.
Which is great. That's double-digit production if it's PPR league. Otherwise, he's a guy you don't necessarily need. Boutte is going to be able to give you more yards on top of that. But at the same time, it's Josh Downs. He's reliable, and he's building that rapport with Daniel Jones. So we're in a PPR league. I want Josh Downs over Kayshon Boutte just because I know he's not going to have those days where, Drake May forgets where he is. Yeah. Daniel Jones, he knows what Josh Downs is capable of. We know what Josh Downs is capable of because we've seen it the past few years. He's not going to blow your doors off, but he's going to be a steady producer in an offense that needs him. Right. Next man up. The leading receiver for the San Francisco 49ers the last 2 weeks. We're talking about Kendrick Bourne, rising his way up the depth chart for an injury-depleted team. Last 2 weeks, 142 yards. Both games, consistent, yes. Thriving because the rest of his team is hurt. Also, yes, so Yaj, would you rather have Kendrick Bourne, currently 35% owned, on your roster, or let's start with Hollywood Brown, who clocks in at 43%?
All right. Man, it's tough. Only because of the way Brown played last night, where he still looked like he was the focus of Patrick Mahomes. However, there was no Rashee Rice in this in that lineup. So I'm gonna go with Bourne, simply because he does have rapport not only with Mac Jones, but just being in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Yeah, I would agree there. Brown's going to get those red zone targets. So his upside remains high, even though his targets are going to be eaten into because he could have a couple of touchdowns like he did on Sunday night. For me, though, Bourne has gone out there and been the quintessential Kyle Shanahan guy. This is a guy who, in the last 2 weeks, 129 yards after a catch. That's the kind of stuff that Kyle Shanahan, watching that on tape, turns into a cartoon wolf. The hard eyes come out. He starts panning. The tongue. This is exactly what he needs to thrive in that San Francisco offense, because it's a bunch of short targets and long runs that make a flawed quarterback look better. It's been the case since Jimmy G. Hanson James was around there. So in this case, I want Kendrick Bourne, even though at one point the Niners will theoretically get healthy. Probably not, but who knows? I don't know. Give me Kendrick Bourne. Next man up, a guy who is maybe finding purpose in the NFL. Trey Tucker, no longer just a deep threat and being an asset in a very depleted Raiders receiving core. Yaj, would you rather have Kendrick Bourne or Trey Tucker in your fantasy lineup?
Give me Bourne here, and it's based solely on the quarterback play. I think that either San Francisco quarterback is going to be more consistent than what we've seen this year from Geno Smith. And I mean, you can't look at the running backs because you're Austin Gentry versus Christian McCaffrey. So we can't lean one way or the other with that. So when it comes to the weapons, I do think that San Francisco provides a better quarterback play here, and that might provide us with more consistent weeks with Bourne than you might see with Tucker and Vegas.
Yeah, I feel like the two are kind of similar players where Tucker was used as a deep threat, and he could be great in that role, but he often failed. And now he's being used closer to the line of scrimmage. He's got those big yak numbers, 70 yards after catch the last 2 weeks, which is exactly what Geno Smith needs to build up his self-esteem after kind of crashing out early. Now, Geno's not fixed by any means. He threw another interception last week, and it was against a bad Titans team. But I think he is going to lean on a guy like Trey Tucker more and more, especially Brock Bowers comes back in that lineup. It's going to create openings across the field. So this one's really a toss-up for me. I do think I want Kendrick Bourne a little bit more right now because he's making more out of his opportunities than Trey Tucker is.
Okay.
But you could convince me either way on this one. If I have one guy on my roster, I'm not going to drop him for the other.
Yep.
Finally, 67% owned, getting a lot of name recognition benefit. Seattle Seahawks wideout Cooper Kupp. Yaj, do you want Cooper Kupp on your roster or do you want Kendrick Bourne?
It's going to be a clean sweep for Bourne here. Cooper Kupp he's not getting used that much. Like even what do you have? 4 targets last week. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but he's just not being utilized enough for me to move forward with him, especially if you have a guy like Bourne out there who might fill a role where he's just simply going to see more volume. And we also keep an eye out for Torrey Horton over there too. So
yeah, our guy.
It's not like it's just Kupp and Smith and Jigba at this point. So I'll stick with Bourne again.
Yeah, even playing with an MVP caliber quarterback, Sam Darnold right now, which is such a weird sentence to say out loud. I don't know. We just haven't really seen it from Cooper Kupp. He still is able to create space. He's still able to get open, but he's not putting up the big numbers like he used to. He's more of a complementary piece, whereas Bourne has kind of by default become a focus in San Francisco. He's not going to continue to have 100-plus yard games, but Kendrick Bourne's a guy who can go out there and give you 6 catches, 80 yards any given week. You can't say the same about Cooper Kupp, so give me Kendrick Bourne on this one. We're going to move on now to Sell High, where we talk about the guys who are outperforming expectations and whether or not you should deal them and get the maximum return on your investment. We talked about Kyle Pitts last week. This week, we're talking about a guy who needed a change of scenery to become great. Daniel Jones, the New York Giants. Yash, do you think Daniel Jones can keep this up? And should you sell high on Danny Dimes?
If this was Danny Dimes of the New York Giants, I would be saying sell, 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 but it is Indiana Jones. So I'm going to say hold. There was a video circulating of him recently where he was discussing his preparation leading up to games and what he used to do with the Giants and how he thought that was, he was doing everything he could do until he got to Minnesota and saw how the quarterbacks were prepping in Minnesota, where he said, oh my gosh, no, I wasn't doing anywhere near as enough. He couldn't get over, I think it was Cade McNown and Sam Darnold, and he was seeing how they were preparing, and he was just like, whoa, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And he's clearly taking that with him to Indianapolis. So I don't think this is a fluke at all. I think this is who Daniel Jones was supposed to be. And now he's in an offense that knows how to use him appropriately. And I think that he is this is who he is for the year.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And it's not just the change in philosophy. This is a very different guy than we saw in New York because he's no longer reliant on checkdowns. Yes, he's got a great running back who can buoy him, but it's not just Jonathan Taylor who's making things work because there's so many weapons. It's such a diverse attack in Indianapolis because he can dump it off to Tyler Warren and let that moose of a tight end rumble downfield. He can throw that quick breaking out to Michael Pittman. He can check it down to Jonathan Taylor. He can throw it deep to Alec Pierce. He can find Josh Downs in the slot. There are too many options for him, and the Colts have done a great job of simplifying his game, getting him to progress through his reads quickly, and getting the ball out of his hands before he can get hit. His sack rate's under 5%. That's kind of ridiculous for Daniel Jones. And he's being used pretty usefully as a runner as well, 4 touchdowns so far. This is not the New York Giants, Daniel Jones. His average target distance is higher than it's been any year but his rookie season with the Giants. And he's doing that even though the Colts are winning and have built a lead through most of these games. It's sustainable. Hold on to Daniel Jones. He's going to be the comeback player of the year. It's remarkable. I have no idea how it happened, but I'm just glad it did.